I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage Chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Welcome to Chair Waves to Rob Halverson. Rob is a Vistage Chair hailing from Omaha, Nebraska, and welcome to Chair Waves. This is almost like being famous, but not quite. So, welcome, Rob. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Awesome. So, I would love to hear about your history, your career before your career as a Vistage Chair, because obviously those are the formative experiences that lead you to be where you are as a business leader and also inform the kind of chair that you are. So I would love to hear about you had a long career with Snap-on Tools, and you've done a number of things in your career. So I would love to hear about that and where you came from as a business leader.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I'm married with a couple grown children. About the time I was 29 years old, I bought a franchise, a Snap-on Tools franchise in Sacramento, California. So I moved from the Bay Area to Sacramento. And I did that for about 6.5, 7 years. Did moderately well. We were top 10 franchises in that particular region.
And if I can ask, what prompted you to do that? What was the thing that was happening for you, or the thing that you were thinking that said, well, A, I want to be a franchise owner, and then B, I want to invest in this particular franchise. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I was a body frame man coming out of the military. Did that for about 9 years. I realized that isn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I had a burning desire to own my own business. It was just everything about it, to kind of call the own shots, treat customers the way I wanted to treat them, all that. And I had no idea what I was going to do, but I understood tools. I love cars. And it just seemed like a natural fit. So that's why I chose Snap-on Tools. It had the best reputation of all the major tool manufacturers that I looked at. And we started that journey. So it was actually super, super competitive, but it was great. I really loved every minute of it. After about 7 years, just short of 7 years, I was talked out of a perfectly good business to become a manager for Snap-on. They basically gave me some blue sky, bought my business. Relocated me to Reno, Nevada. So I started off with about 4 franchises. We built it 12. We ended up number 2 in the Western United States. I was really, really fortunate to surround myself with really good people. I was promoted. They moved me to Denver, Colorado. I was in the Arvada area. So basically we had Casper, Wyoming, down to Farmington, New Mexico, over to Utah. And I had 87 franchises at that point. I was the sales manager, later became the acting branch manager. Then the whole world changed with Snap-on. They reinvented themselves as far as branches and regions go. There were 30 some odd branches at one point, and they went to 13 regions. So I became what's called a regional sales manager. So I ended up with 272 franchises that I was charged with. We did real well. Eventually I was moved to my choice of anywhere in the Midwest. I chose Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
And we were, out of 13 regions, we were ranked 11th. In 2 years, we became number 2. So we did real well. Snap-on decided to refigure again, and we went from 13 to 9. So I became what they call the region I was with. Even though we did real well, we were number 2, they dissolved it. So I became what's called a franchise manager. So I had just about 600 franchises. I handled 1.5 regions, and basically everything from Niceville, Florida, to Casper, Wyoming, Des Moines, Iowa, down to Phoenix, Arizona. So it was fairly large.
Yeah,
We did
no kidding.
Again, really, really fortunate just being around some great people. We were number 1 and number 2 out of the 9 regions. So we did real well there. That was 10 regions, actually, including Canada.
Okay. Did you beat the Canadians too?
No, I didn't work with the Canadians, but
Okay.
I was offered the position to be the national sales manager for Canada, and I turned that down, not because it wasn't a great opportunity, just because I had a couple kids going into college and stuff like that, and the timing just wasn't right.
Sure.
But I became what's called an asset manager after that. So I had 389 franchises, and I was kind of the middleman between the franchisor and the franchisee. So we handled a lot of legal issues. We handled conflict, a lot of conflict resolution.
Sure.
Need the FDD, franchise disclosure document front to back. Worked with the goal was to do every franchise's business review once a year. So with 389, you can do the math there. It was a pretty busy
Yeah.
in my life.
Well, there's only 365 days in the year, so
Right. That, it's one of the best positions I ever had. I was able to help a lot of franchisees achieve their dreams. And that was very fulfilling. Very fulfilling. Anyway, did that for 6+ years. Pretty much got tired of traveling every day of my life.
sure.
So I retired for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, I've retired 3 times, by the way.
All right.
I'm not very good
retirement.
at it.
So retirement number 1, and before we hit retirement number 1,
Yeah.
curious. So, how did being that you had come from the franchisee side and not initially from the corporate side, how did that inform the way that you carried yourself as a manager within the Snap-on organization?
Well, that's actually a really good question. I was maybe a little bit unique. My whole thought process, thinking from the franchisee side, if I can help every franchisee become successful, I get to go along for the ride. So if I looked at what was best for them, of course within certain guidelines, it was good. It was a win-win for everybody. So I carry that thought process with me today, with everything I do.
And this journey took you from the California Bay Area to Sacramento to Reno to Denver, where I'm based, and then to Omaha. You had an opportunity to live in a number of places on the west side of this country. What are the things that you learned on that journey, having spent so much time in a variety of different places?
That's a really good question, Eric. I think the number one thing that stood out to me is how good people are everywhere. I found no place that was disagreeable to me. Every place that I visited, the people who lived there thought it was the best place on the planet. And while I lived there, I tended to agree with them. But I've enjoyed every piece of it. I love Denver. I lived in a place called Arvada, if you know where that is.
Yep, just north of me.
Yeah, just 4.5 years I was up there. I lived right in back of the old Arvada Center. My wife used to call it the ugly house, but it had the best view in all of Denver. I could see all the way downtown.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Reno. Reno was great. We lived out in Sparks, actually, which is outside of the main hub of Reno, if you will, in Spanish Springs.
Biggest little city in America, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I was part of Hot August Nights. We sponsored that for quite a few years out there. Had a lot of. Again, I'm a big car guy, so I've enjoyed it all. It's really been good. Omaha, I've called home. I'm not moving. We've been here 21 years. My daughter lives here, and her husband. 3 grandkids here, and my son is the strategic marketing director for Debt.com out in Florida. and he's doing wonderful. I got one granddaughter there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you retired, and what happened? Then what happened after that? Failed retirement number one.
My wife, her comment told a lot. I went from the guy who was never at home to the guy who never left. Now, let that sink in for a minute. So, anyway, I got bored, and It was, when you tell your wife how to vacuum the floor, it just doesn't go over real well. So, I started doing consulting. I got to work with an adhesive company out here. We did well. We grew just short of 200% in 3.5 years. Worked with a couple other individual companies. Anyway, after the first one, I retired. Thought, okay, done doing 60-hour weeks, and I got bored again. So I took on some other consulting gigs. Did real well. I had a lot of fun. Great people. Retired the third time, and realized at that point that retirement is just not in the cards for me. I don't golf. I love business. I love small business in particular. And just working with people and helping them move forward is, I'm going to keep doing that until this noggin stops working.
So what led you to Vistage?
Actually, when I was looking to leave Snap-on, there was a local best practice chair. I was introduced to him here. And we got to talk about it a little bit, but it wasn't the right time for me at that point. So after I retired...
So you said call me after a couple more retirements.
That's how it ended up. That isn't what I said, but he's a wonderful person. We sat down and talked for, a couple hours, and I just asked him directly, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Well, I think you should have done this 2 years ago." So we started the journey, and I have a small business. I'm a small business chair here in Omaha.
And I'm curious about, a couple things. So number one, a lot of Vistage chairs become Vistage chairs, and they've got their eyes on the CE groups. And while it's not universal, and you're not the first chair that I've talked to that started with a small business group, the small business group isn't exactly what Vistage is known for. What made you decide to take that on in particular when you got started?
No. Well, primarily, Eric, when I was with Snap-on, I had the 389 franchises. That was a $202 million operation, but every one of them were between, I'll say, 400,000 and say 2 million, right? So, I'm the ultimate small business person. I understand the ins and outs of the business, sitting at the kitchen table, mom and the kids are running around. It's a small business world, and I really enjoy that, and I feel I can make my experiences allowed me to make the greatest impact there. So it's, to your point, it's not the most well-known program, but there's a whole bunch of people that are about, in that smaller business segment that really don't get any attention. They have nobody to talk to. There's very few, if any, programs that are there for them. And Vistage did a great job just setting up that, I'll say 1.5 and up type segment.
In the small business segment, by the way, is near and dear to my heart. I've been working with SMBs, for close to 20 years now, and that's so I really appreciate the affinity for that, and it is the small businesses that make our economy go. We create the majority of the jobs. We're the backbone of the country, and small business in general doesn't get the respect or admiration that it deserves. So I appreciate what you said.
Thank you. I agree with everything you just said.
So almost universally, another thing that I've learned from doing this podcast and interviewing now 60-something Vistage Chairs is that many of them say that one of the hardest things that they ever had to do, not as a Vistage Chair, but in their entire career, was start their first group after Chair Academy. What was your experience going on that journey, and how did you approach it? Because it is difficult. It is a challenge. How did you tackle that, and how did that process make you feel?
Well, I did everything I could to try to follow the guidance that was given to me. It is a slog. You're doing a lot of cold calls, reaching out to people. Didn't really know what I was offering at that point. You're doing your best. Try to work your way through it, and then stay true to yourself. Right? This isn't like selling used cars. You're looking for the right fits to the person who could benefit from the group, and the type of person that would fit into the group where the group would benefit from that person.
Right.
So it's really quite difficult. It took me better part of a year to get launched. I had put aside a fair amount of capital to get myself through, to get things going. And I'm also, blessed to be in a position where I'm not wealthy by any means, but if I didn't work, I'm okay. Right?
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question or not, Eric.
Oh, no, that's totally fine, totally valid. How do you know when you sit down with somebody for the first time, and a lot of Vistage Chairs, when they meet a prospective member, you're over at the Starbucks or at lunch or wherever, and when you're sitting across the table from somebody new, what's your process of figuring out whether they're going to be a good fit for your group?
Multifaceted. Some of it's just experience, through the years, but typically I want to find out what they're looking for. What are their blind spots? Are they looking to grow their business? What are issues that they can't seem to quite get over? What's keeping them up at night? That kind of thing. So I try to ask a lot of questions, and then I'm measuring the feedback that I get from them from those questions. I'm also trying to assess if will allow themselves to at least be a little bit vulnerable, in those beginning stages, their honesty, moving forward, and their curiosity. If they have no questions for me, that's usually not a really good sign.
Right.
So it's just an accumulation of things. So typically it starts with a phone call. I'll introduce myself. I don't have a great script per se. I'm a little free-flowing on that, but the goal of the call is to get to a meeting.
Yep.
So we get them to a meeting. We can sit, in front of each other, break bread, maybe have a cup of coffee. We can tell a few stories and so on, and you start getting a feel for each other. It may be that they can't stand me. You never know, right? So we try to see if there's a little bit of synergy and if they're looking for that type of journey, if they would fit in. Usually I don't get into financials or any of that kind of thing in that meeting unless I need to.
Yep.
If the plan is to get now to what they call an SI, a selection interview, another second interview, then I'll try to cover a little bit of cost to make sure that we're not eliminating them right off the bat.
Very cool. You describe your group as an incubator, and I've never heard somebody talk about their Vistage group in those sorts of terms. So I'm curious, what does that mean to you? How does that carry through to the meetings? How does that carry through to the membership? I'm really curious about your perspective on that.
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I actually have two groups. I have a second group that are people who don't qualify quite yet for Vistage. They're really too small. They're like 350, 400, 500,000, very, very small businesses. And so I work with them and I try to grow them to the point that they can become Vistage members. I'll probably have two this next year that'll come forward. And in the small business group, the goal is there that people will keep growing their business and they may grow into a CE group, right? So there's nothing, I couldn't think of a better reward for this whole thing than to have somebody end up starting in, the smallest business group, get into the SB group with Vistage, grow to 1, 2, 3, 4 businesses. All of a sudden they're doing $25, $30 million a year. Now they want to sit at the table with other people doing that. I mean, how cool is that, right? It just doesn't get any better.
It's very cool, and it's the best reason imaginable for somebody to leave your SB group.
Yeah, and I'll move them forward. I mean, I'll recommend them. I'll find them the best fit chair-wise. That's the goal. When nobody will get kicked out of the group, but if they certainly get to that point and it's the right thing to do, I'm 100% behind them.
But sometimes people need to graduate. I ran a marketing agency for many years, and that was, you never liked losing a client, but when you lose the client because they got acquired and made a ton of money, or because they had grown to the point where they need a different type of help, it was like, no, that means that we did a fantastic job, and we're going to celebrate that. So I get that. That's a really good attitude.
Yeah, it's almost, any type of a leader in any organization, one of their primary jobs, in my estimation, is to grow everyone that they work with. Teach them everything get them to where they can do your job, quite honestly, and move forward. And having them hired by an outside company, or even taking your position at some point as you move on, there's no greater honor.
What's something in the time that you've been leading these meetings, what's something that your members actually taught you? What have you learned from the experience of leading your meetings?
When I first started this, Eric, I figured with my background and everything else, I'd be able to help all these people, right? I'd be able to do all these things. And I got into the room with, in the beginning of the group, with 8 other business owners, and I found out that I wasn't even close to the smartest guy in the room. So it's very humbling. You learn to really, really listen and become a learner. I've learned more things from different issues, opportunities, and things that we've processed in the groups. And I'm just a group member who tries to keep the meetings on the rails, right? So it's very, very enjoyable. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I learn every meeting, every one-to-one. It's very rewarding.
Was the transition, because being a Vistage Chair uses the skills that we all gather in various leadership positions over a career, but being a Vistage Chair is not really like being an executive. It's not like being a consultant. It's its own thing. It's not like being a coach even. How did you make that transition for yourself, and was that relatively easy for you, or was that a bumpy road trying to figure out the best way to be your role?
I learn every day. I don't know if it was an easy transition. The toughest transition was going from consultant to where you're telling people what they should do to just two ears, one mouth. Being a great listener, asking questions, and helping nudge them in the right direction, connecting them to resources, other members, things like that. It's very difficult. Most of us who run businesses or whatever else have egos, and me included. So I may think I know the best way to do things, but it's immaterial. It's completely immaterial. So I think that was the roughest transition, to not be the consultant I'm an aide. I'm just here to help facilitate. Let's find the best path for you. And your success, I think the other big aha moment is everybody's success is measured differently. Mm-hmm. People that come into the group, some of them, they don't have anybody to talk to. They can't talk to their employees. It could be they've just isolated themselves to such a point from being in business all these years that they get no constructive criticism. They have nobody looking over their shoulder, who's got their blind spots kind of thing. Others want to give back. You got the old veteran graybeards like me who want to come out and help other people. And it's so like I said, it's how they choose or define success is what matters the most.
Very cool. Well, Rob, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you. Thank you so much for being a great guest. If folks have questions about your group, questions about how to get incubated into your group, if they want to talk cars, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Well, easiest way is my Vistage email, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My email is rob.halverson@vistagechair.com. And my website is foundationsomaha.com.
Thank you so much for being a great guest.
Hey, thank you, Eric. I appreciate being here.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
You as well. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.